Hey folks, welcome to the Salty Seaman's Tales from the Fleet. Today we're going to be talking about the constant bullshitter who always has something way better going on back home than what they have going on in their military life. Now on this one I'm going to specifically focus on one story because I just kind of remembered it and it's pretty damn funny. But overall, anyone who served can tell you that there's always going to be a string of people who have something way going on, supposedly way better than what they're doing now, which is being a junior enlisted in the military. Generally, these fall into kind of one category. It's either their uncle, their dad, or some well-off friend has a job waiting for them back home. This job almost always is six figures, and usually it's an uncle with a car dealership. I don't know why that story's so popular, but so many people in the military seem to have given up six-figure jobs to go get treated like shit for not very good pay as a junior enlisted for 4 years. I don't get that mentality, and of course, most of them are absolutely full of shit. But here's a story with a little interesting twist on it I thought maybe you guys would appreciate. So we have this guy, we're going to call him Dave. Honestly, I don't remember his name anyway, so that's what we're going to call him. Dave was one of those guys. He was, I believe, worked in deck department. Yes, he did work in deck department. And he was one of those guys that was just a constant bullshitter, a constant braggart about things he had no reason to brag about, or you just knew didn't happen. Just constantly telling stories. And of course, one is like, I don't need this shit. I can go back home to bumfuck wherever, and I'm gonna work for my uncle, and I'll make six figures a year selling cars. And of course, we all kind of laugh him off. I'm so like, yeah, you and like half the ship apparently, yeah, whatever. Now, interesting about this guy was he really did have an uncle that ran a car dealership. To the point where he had his uncle send photos of the dealership, his uncle's house, their cars, all real nice stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, you do have that back home. But of course, he's set up a million other things we knew weren't true, but one out of a million. But also the idea he was going to walk in and start making six figures seemed, especially to people who knew about how car dealerships work, seemed fairly ludicrous. But you weren't going to convince him any different, and anything he said to him, he always had an answer about how he's bigger, better, and stronger, more alive, whatever, than anybody else. And he did this, he fucked this bitch, he made this money, he used to have this car, that stuff. And constantly. He was a one-upper, bullshit artist. He was also a shitty worker, which made him not super popular in his department. He was a guy known for half-assed work and skating off in the middle of the workday for hours constantly. If you don't know what skating is, it's the Navy Marine Corps term for slacking off, goofing off. So the guy starting to get close. He's getting down to the wire. He's about to get out. I believe he managed to avoid NJP, but he had probably enough counseling shits and to wallpaper his room, and of course he becomes even more insufferable. He gives me an update like every day on the smoke deck about how many days in the wake up he has. I'm like, dude, I know, you tell me every day. Guy's like, yep, 35 in a wake up. 30. Like, I'll get in 2 weeks till I get my checkout sheet or whatever. And I was like, okay, look, I mean, it's whatever. It's the smoke deck. Some people you just kind of just glaze your eyes over and let them go on. This guy had learned a long time ago just to not to encourage him, because generally, anything I said would just be, he had to, pop up a story about it, and generally it was, either half or all the way full of shit. So, time comes around, he finally gets his checkout sheet, and another great standing tradition of the military is when you have a checkout sheet, your peers are nearly required to try to destroy the fucking thing. Wad it up, try to set it on fire, dump it in the butt can and water. And, this guy not only was no different, but his seemed to be one of the most destroyed checkout sheets I'd ever seen. It was It had been wadded up so many times it was nearly out of stiffness. It was taped together. Someone had torn it up. It was covered in Scotch tape, holding it together. It had been at least two people had tried to burn it. It had burn marks on the side, and I sort of got to look like someone might try to wipe their ass with it. I don't. It might have been mud. Who knows? But it was one of the most destroyed checkout sheets. And he was like, "Hold it, like, dude, just let me see it. I swear, like, I don't think there's anything I can left to do with it." And yeah, I looked at it and I made it like I was going to ball it up and I handed it back to him. But anyway, it was pretty comical. And, this guy was just so obnoxious and just so full of it. I mean, everyone was kind of like, all right, I'm kind of glad he's leaving. he's bumfuck wherever's problem now. So one of the funnier parts of this was about 6 months later, they were sitting around having beers, a group of people. And this guy's names comes up, Dave or whatever. And one of his co-workers we'll call Bob, who I also don't remember his real name, who actually was kind of friends with the guy, or at least he was probably the one person who could stand him enough to, hang out with him on a regular basis, had been keeping up with him on the newfangled email thing. He apparently did come from a little bit of money. His parents had a computer in like 1998, and he had Hotmail. So, that part of his little story sticks out or, plays out. But he says, "Oh, I can tell you, I know exactly what's been going on." And he tells us what happened when he got home. So, surprise, surprise, he did not walk into a 6-figure car salesman job with his uncle. He, in fact, walked into being a grunt, washing cars, running errands, cleaning things, kind of what he did in the Navy. And guess what? He fucking hated it. And basically was told, like, well, what did you expect? He's like, well, he's my uncle. I figured he'd put me straight up in the salesman position, which is just delusional. I mean, just anybody would know. You're not, nepotism aside, you have to pay your dues in that kind of line of work, unless you just have a really, it's really like your dad's just the boss and he absolutely just no toes to his kid. But even in that situation, generally, they make you, start on the ground floor before, prove yourself before they let you be a salesman. So apparently this lasted about a month, where he said he quit because it was bullshit. Bob is pretty sure he was fired for being incompetent or being lazy, because Bob did work with him and knew exactly how lazy this guy was. He knew exactly what lack of work ethic he had. And, he went on, and then he went on to try college, and he did half a semester and quit because according to Bob, Dave said, college is bullshit. Keep in mind, he did half a semester at a community college taking, entry-level community college courses on the GI Bill with, which gives you full tuition and a living stipend. It's, a pretty sweet deal. Everyone should take advantage of it. And, I can't stress this enough. I mean, if you're really good, you can stretch that bitch out 6-7 years. And, especially the post 9/11 version, which is like the rent stipend is just ridiculous. So, everyone should do it. So this guy just, and then after that, he had worked a couple other places and didn't last nearly as long, a week or two, where he again, quote unquote, quit. More than likely, again, fired, and more than likely, the only reason he lasted a month at his uncle's was because it was his uncle. But everywhere else, didn't give him a chance. And then one day he didn't, he stopped getting emails back from him. So he, I think he got drunk one night at the Alliance Club and decided to call his house. And his parents answered and said he no longer lived there. They kicked him out because he refused to get a job, and he refused to go to school. He refused to do anything. He was waiting around for something, and he was off living with a friend somewhere, and they didn't have the number to the place. Couch surfing. So this is just a fun little example of, how things, what those people are like. And, just a word of warning for, the new guys looking to go in the military. Either, you're going to run into these people, and you're going to run into a lot of them from boot camp to the next 4 or 5 years, whatever you end up doing, who all have that story. And you'll notice that these people, they always seem to be a little full of shit. They always seem to be a bit, they're not what they say they are, and they're generally not good sailors or Marines or soldiers or airmen. They're usually fucking shitbags. And they justify it by saying, I don't fucking care about this place. I got X job when I get home. And almost none of them do, or if they do, it's not going to work out the way they thought it would. I've also seen guys who are, best of friends, and they were going to move together and start a business, and one lived in Indiana and one lived in Wisconsin, and they get out, and then, the guy in Indiana was promised to go move to Wisconsin, be with his boy, and then slowly over time he realizes that that's not going to happen. These are things, people delude themselves a lot of times. And a lot of people are just full of shit. They never had that job. They never had anything close to that, or was a vague idea from somebody like, hey, maybe you could come work here. And then they actually get out and it's like, yeah, I don't have any room for you. And I've heard that one a lot of times too. So that's kind of it, just the short and sweet of it. I thought you guys might get a kick out of that tale, and me just remembering it, I sure did. This is, been a lot of fun making these, and I hope to next time I do a tales, I'll pick up from the chronological point. That's all I got for now. Peace.